Chapter 11. Sometimes, while reflecting on these matters alone, I would be seized by sudden terror, prompting me to put on my bonnet and check on the farm. I convinced myself it was my duty to warn him about the rumors surrounding his behavior. Yet, recalling his entrenched vices, I would lose hope of helping him and hesitate to re-enter that gloomy house, fearing I might be held to my word. Once I passed the old gate, straying from my path on a trip to Gimmerton. It was around the time my story has reached. A bright, frosty afternoon, with the ground bare and a road firm and dry. I arrived at a stone where the highway splits off onto the moor on your left. A rough sand pillar marked with the letters WH on its north side, G on the east and TG on the southwest. It serves as a guidepost to the Grange, Wuthering Heights, and the village. The sun cast a golden light on its grey top, evoking memories of summer, and for reasons I cannot explain, a rush of childhood emotions surged through my heart. Hindley and I cherished this spot 2 decades ago. I lingered over the weathered stone, and as I bent down, I noticed a small hole near the base, still filled with snail shells and pebbles, remnants of our childhood treasures, alongside more fleeting keepsakes. It was as if I could see my young playmate again sitting on the faded grass, his dark, square head leaning forward, his small hand digging into the earth with a piece of slate. "Poor Hindley!" I exclaimed without thinking. I was startled. For a moment, my eyes deceived me into believing the child lifted his face and looked directly at me. In an instant, the vision disappeared, but I was seized by an overwhelming urge to return to the heights. Superstition nudged me to follow this impulse. What if he were dead? I wondered. Or on the brink of death? What if it was an omen? The closer I got to the house, the more anxious I became. And when it finally came into view, I trembled all over. The apparition had outpaced me. It stood gazing through the gate. That was my first thought upon seeing a wild-haired, brown-eyed boy pressing his rosy face against the bars. On further reflection, I realized this must be Hareton. My Hareton, and not much changed since I last saw him 10 months ago. God bless you, darling. I burst into tears, instantly forgetting my foolish fears. Hareton, it's Nellie. Nellie, your nurse. He backed away, just out of reach, and picked up a large stone. I'm here to see your father, Hareton, I said, realizing from his reaction that if he remembered Nellie at all, he didn't connect her with me. He lifted the stone, ready to throw it. I started to speak soothingly, but couldn't stop him in time. The stone hit my bonnet. Then, from his stammering lips, came a string of curses, delivered with such practiced emphasis that they twisted his young face into a shocking mask of malice. This pained me more than it angered me. On the verge of tears, I took an orange from my pocket and offered it to appease him. He hesitated, then snatched it from my hand, as if he thought I meant to trick him. I showed him another, holding it just out of reach. "Who taught you those fine words, my child?" I asked. "The curate?" "Damn the curate and you. Give me that," he replied. "Tell us where you got your lessons, and you shall have it," I said. "Who's your teacher?" "Devil Daddy," he replied. "And what do you learn from him?" I pressed. He lunged for the fruit. I lifted it out of reach. What does he teach you? I asked. Nothing, he said, except to stay out of his way. Daddy can't stand me because I swear at him. Ah, so the devil teaches you to swear at your father? I remarked. Yes, no, he drawled. Who, then? Heathcliff. I asked if he liked Mr. Heathcliff. Yes, he answered again. Wanting to know why he liked him, I could only piece together his words. I don't know. He pays Dad back for what he does to me. He curses Daddy for cursing me. He says I can do as I please. And the curate doesn't teach you to read and write, then? I continued. No. I was told the curate would have his teeth knocked down his throat if he dared cross the threshold. Heathcliff promised that. I placed the orange in his hand and instructed him to tell his father that a woman named Nellie Dean was waiting to speak with him by the garden gate. He walked up the path and entered the house. However, instead of Hindley, Heathcliff emerged at the door. I immediately turned and sprinted down the road as fast as I could, not stopping until I reached the guidepost, feeling as if I had conjured a ghost. This incident isn't directly related to Miss Isabella's situation, except that it strengthened my resolve to keep a vigilant watch and do everything in my power to curb the spread of such negative influence at the Grange, even if it meant stirring up trouble by opposing Mrs. Linton's wishes. The next time Heathcliff visited, my young lady happened to be feeding pigeons in the courtyard. She hadn't spoken a word to her sister-in-law for 3 days, but she had also ceased her fretful complaints, which was a great relief to us. I knew Heathcliff wasn't one to offer unnecessary courtesies to Miss Linton. As soon as he saw her, his first move was to scan the front of the house. I was standing by the kitchen window, but quickly stepped out of sight. He then crossed the pavement to her and said anything. She appeared flustered and eager to leave. To stop her, he placed his hand on her arm. She turned her face away, and it seemed he asked her a question she was unwilling to answer. There was another quick glance at the house, and thinking himself unseen, the scoundrel had the audacity to embrace her. "Judas? Traitor!" I exclaimed. "You're a hypocrite, too, aren't you? A deliberate deceiver." "Who is Nellie?" came Catherine's voice right beside me. I had been so focused on watching the pair outside that I hadn't noticed her come in. "Your worthless friend," I replied heatedly. "That sneaky rascal over there. Ah, he's spotted us. He's coming in. I wonder if he'll have the nerve to come up with a plausible excuse for wooing Miss when he told you he despised her." Mrs. Linton saw Isabella break free and run into the garden. A moment later, Heathcliff opened the door. I couldn't hold back my indignation, but Catherine angrily demanded silence, threatening to throw me out of the kitchen if I dared to speak so insolently. "Listening to you, people might think you're the mistress," she snapped. "You need to be put in your place. Heathcliff, what are you doing? Causing this commotion?" "I told you to leave Isabella alone. Please, unless you're tired of being welcome here and want Linton to lock you out." "God forbid he tries," replied the dark-hearted man, whom I loathed at that moment. "May God Keep him humble and patient. Every day I feel more insane for wanting to send him to heaven." "Quiet," Catherine said, closing the inner door. "Don't upset me. Why have you ignored my request? Did she seek you out deliberately?" "What does it matter to you?" he snarled. "I have the right to kiss her if she allows it. You have no right to object. I'm not your husband. You don't need to be jealous of me." "I'm not jealous of you," the mistress replied. "I'm concerned for you. Wipe that look off your face. You won't glare at me. If you like Isabella, you should marry her. But do you like her?" "Tell the truth, Heathcliff. There, you refuse to answer." "I'm certain you don't." "And would Mr. Linton approve of his sister marrying that man?" I asked. "Mr. Linton should approve," my lady replied with conviction. "He might as well save himself the effort," Heathcliff interjected. "I can manage without his approval. And as for you, Catherine, I feel compelled to speak now, while we're on the subject. I want you to know that I am fully aware of how you've treated me. Abominably, abominably. Do you hear me? If you think I don't see it, you're a fool. If you believe sweet words can console me, you're an idiot. And if you imagine I'll endure this without retaliation, I'll soon prove you wrong. Meanwhile, thank you for revealing your sister-in-law's secret. I swear I'll make the most of it. Now, step aside." "What new aspect of his character is this?" Mrs. Linton exclaimed in astonishment. "I've treated you abominably, and you'll have your revenge. How will you take it, you ungrateful brute?" "How have I treated you abominably?" "I have no desire for revenge against you," Heathcliff replied, his tone less intense. "That's not my intention. The oppressor crushes his subordinates, and they don't retaliate against him. Instead, they oppress those even lower. Feel free to torment me to death for your entertainment, but allow me a bit of amusement in the same vein, and try to avoid insults as much as you can. After demolishing my palace, don't build a shack and smugly congratulate yourself for offering me that as a home. If I thought you genuinely wanted me to marry Isabel, I'd rather end my life." "Oh, so the problem is that I'm not jealous, is it?" Catherine exclaimed. "Well, I won't make the offer of a wife again. It's like offering a lost soul to Satan. Your happiness, like his, is in causing suffering. You demonstrate it. Edgar has recovered from the bad mood your arrival caused. I'm starting to feel secure and calm. And you, unable to stand our peace, seem determined to stir up conflict. Argue with Edgar if you wish, Heathcliff, and deceive his sister. You'll find that's the most effective way to take revenge on me." The conversation ended. Mrs. Linton sat by the fire, flushed and brooding. The spirit that once served her was becoming unruly, beyond her ability to calm or command. He stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, lost in his dark thoughts. I left them there and went to find the master, who was puzzled by Catherine's prolonged absence downstairs. "Ellen," he said as I entered, "have you seen your mistress?" "Yes, she's in the kitchen, sir," I replied. "She's quite upset by Mr. Heathcliff's behaviour. Honestly, I think it's high time we reconsider how often he visits. Being too lenient has led to this." I recounted the scene in the courtyard, and, as much as I dared, the argument that followed. I believed it wouldn't harm Mrs. Linton's reputation, unless she later chose to defend her guest. "Edgar," Linton struggled to listen until I finished. His first reaction showed he didn't absolve his wife of fault. "This is intolerable," he burst out. "It's disgraceful that she considers him a friend and imposes his presence on me. Ellen, call 2 men from the hall. Catherine will no longer waste time arguing with that lowlife. I've indulged her enough." He went downstairs, instructing the servants to wait in the hallway, and I followed him to the kitchen. Inside, the argument had flared up again. Mrs. Linton was scolding with renewed intensity. Heathcliff had moved to the window, his head bowed, seemingly subdued by her fierce reprimand. He noticed the master first and quickly signalled for her to stop, which she did immediately upon realising why. "What's going on here?" Linton asked her. "What kind of propriety do you think it shows to stay here after the way that scoundrel has spoken to you? I suppose you're so used to his vulgarity that it doesn't bother you anymore? Maybe you think I can get used to it too." "Have you been eavesdropping, Edgar?" she asked, her tone deliberately provoking him, suggesting both indifference and disdain for his anger. Heathcliff, who had looked up at Edgar's earlier words, let out a mocking laugh at this, seemingly to draw Mr. Linton's attention to himself. He succeeded, but Edgar wasn't about to indulge him with any dramatic outburst. "I've been patient with you, sir," he said calmly. "Not because I was unaware of your wretched, degraded nature, but because I believed you were only partly to blame for it. And since Catherine wanted to maintain your acquaintance, I went along with it. Foolishly. Your presence is a moral toxin that would corrupt even the most virtuous soul. To prevent further harm, I will no longer allow you entry into this house. I demand your immediate departure. If you delay even 3 minutes, your exit will be forced and disgraceful." Heathcliff surveyed the speaker with a gaze full of scorn. "Cathy, your little lamb roars like a bull," he mocked. "It risks cracking its skull against my fist. Honestly, Mr. Linton, it's a pity you're not worth the effort of knocking down." My master glanced toward the hallway and gestured for me to summon the men. He had no intention of risking a physical confrontation. I understood and moved to comply, but Mrs. Linton, sensing something amiss, followed me. As I tried to call them, she pulled me back, slammed the door shut, and locked it. "Use diplomacy," she said, responding to her husband's look of angry surprise. "If you lack the courage to confront him, then apologize, or let yourself be bested. It might cure you of pretending to have more bravery than you actually do." "No, I'll swallow the key before you ever get it," I exclaimed, feeling the bitter irony of my so-called kindness. After indulging one person's weakness and another's wickedness, this is my reward. 2 glaring examples of blind ingratitude. So absurd, it's almost laughable. "Edgar, I was standing up for you and yours, and I hope Heathcliff gives you a thrashing for daring to think ill of me." But it didn't take a beating to bring Edgar to his knees. He tried to snatch the key from Catherine's hand, but she, in a flash of defiance, hurled it into the heart of the fire. Edgar was seized by a fit of trembling, his face drained of all colour. He couldn't control the rush of emotion. Anguish and humiliation overwhelmed him entirely. He leaned on the back of a chair, hiding his face in his hands. "Oh, heavens! In the old days, this would have earned you a knighthood," cried Mrs. Linton. "We are defeated. We are defeated. Heathcliff would as soon raise a finger against you as the king would send his army to battle a colony of mice." "Cheer up. You won't be harmed. You're not a lamb. You're more like a timid young hare." "I wish you joy with that milk-blooded coward, Cathy," her friend retorted. "I commend your taste. That's the drooling, trembling creature you chose over me. I wouldn't bother to punch him, but I'd gladly kick him and feel quite satisfied. Is he crying, or is he about to faint from fear?" The fellow stepped forward and gave the chair where Linton sat a shove. He should have kept his distance. My master leapt up swiftly and delivered a punch to his throat that would have floored a lesser man. It left him gasping for air, and as he struggled to breathe, Mr. Linton calmly exited through the back door into the yard, then made his way to the front entrance. "There! You're done coming here," Catherine shouted. "Leave now. He'll be back with a pair of pistols and a handful of helpers. If he overheard us, he'd never forgive you. You've done me a disservice, Heathcliff, but go, quickly." "I'd rather face Edgar in a corner than deal with you. Do you think I'm leaving with this rage burning inside me?" he roared. "Absolutely not. I'll crush his ribs like a brittle hazelnut before I step out. If I don't take him down now, I'll end up killing him later. So, if you care about his life, let me at him." "He's not coming," I interjected, crafting a small lie. "The coachman and the 2 gardeners are here. Surely you won't wait to be thrown out by them. Each one has a club, and the master will likely be watching from the parlour windows to ensure they follow his orders." The gardeners and coachman were indeed present, but Linton was with them. They had already entered the courtyard. Heathcliff, reconsidering, decided against a confrontation with 3 servants. He grabbed the poker, smashed the lock on the inner door, and made his escape as they marched in. Mrs. Linton, visibly agitated, asked me to accompany her upstairs. She was unaware of my role in the commotion, and I was eager to keep her in the dark. "I'm nearly out of my mind, Nellie," she exclaimed, collapsing onto the sofa. "1,000 hammers are pounding in my head. Tell Isabella to stay away from me. This chaos is her doing. If she or anyone else stirs my anger right now, I might lose control. And, Nellie, if you see Edgar tonight, tell him I'm on the brink of serious illness. I hope it's true. He's shocked and upset me terribly. I want to scare him. Besides, he might come and start hurling insults or complaints. I'm sure I'd retaliate. And who knows where that would lead us. Will you do that for me, dear Nellie? You know I'm not to blame here. What possessed him to eavesdrop? Heathcliff's words were outrageous after you left, but I could have easily steered him away from Isabella, and the rest was meaningless. Now everything's gone wrong because of that foolish desire to hear bad things about oneself, which haunts some people like a demon. If Edgar hadn't overheard our conversation, he wouldn't have been affected by it. Honestly, when he confronted me with that irrational displeasure after I'd scolded Heathcliff hoarse for his sake, I barely cared what they did to each other, especially since I felt that, however things ended, we'd all be torn apart for who knows how long. Well, if I can't keep Heathcliff as a friend, If Edgar insists on being petty and jealous, I'll try to break their hearts by breaking my own. That will be a swift way to end it all when I'm pushed to the edge. Oh, but that's a move best saved for a desperate situation. I wouldn't ambush Linton with it. So far, he's been careful not to provoke me. You need to convey the danger of abandoning that strategy and remind him of my fiery temper, which once ignited borders on madness. I wish you could shake off that indifference from your face and show a bit more concern for me. The calmness with which I received these instructions was likely quite irritating, as they were given with complete sincerity. But I believed that someone who could plan to use their fits of passion to their advantage could, by sheer will, manage to control themselves reasonably well, even in the throes of those fits. I had no desire to frighten her husband, as she put it, and add to his troubles just to serve her selfish aims. So I said nothing when I encountered the master heading towards the parlour. Instead, I turned back to listen, in case they resumed their argument. He was the first to speak. "Stay where you are, Catherine," he said, his voice devoid of anger, but heavy with sorrowful resignation. "I won't linger. I'm not here to argue or reconcile. I just want to know if, after tonight's events, you plan to continue your closeness with—" "Oh, for mercy's sake," the mistress interrupted, stamping her foot. "For mercy's sake, let's hear no more of it now. Your cold blood can't be stirred into a fever. Your veins run with ice water, but mine are boiling, and the sight of such chillness makes them dance." "To get rid of me, answer my question," Mr. Linton insisted. "You must answer it. Your outburst doesn't scare me. I've seen you can be as unyielding as anyone when you choose. Will you abandon Heathcliff from now on, or will you abandon me? You can't be both my friend and his. I need to know which you choose." "I need to be left alone!" Catherine shouted, her voice filled with fury. "I demand it! Can't you see I can barely stand? Edgar, just leave me!" She rang the bell with such force that it snapped with a sharp twang. I entered calmly. It was enough to test the patience of a saint, these irrational, wicked fits of rage. There she lay, pounding her head against the sofa arm, grinding her teeth as if she might shatter them to pieces. Mr. Linton stood there, suddenly filled with remorse and fear. He instructed me to fetch some water. She was too breathless to speak. I brought a glass full, and since she refused to drink, I sprinkled it on her face. In a matter of seconds, she went rigid, her eyes rolling back, her cheeks turning a deathly pale with a hint of blue. Linton was visibly shaken. "There's nothing wrong," I whispered, not wanting him to give in, though I couldn't shake my own fear. "There's blood on her lips," he exclaimed, trembling. "Ignore it," I snapped back. I explained how she had decided, before he arrived, to put on a display of madness. Foolishly, I spoke too loudly, and she heard me. She sprang up, hair wild around her shoulders, eyes blazing, the muscles in her neck and arms unnaturally tense. I braced myself for a violent outburst, but she merely glared for a moment before storming out of the room. The master instructed me to follow. I did, up to her bedroom door, but she barred my entry, locking it. When she didn't come down for breakfast the next morning, I asked if she wanted something brought up. "No," she replied, firmly. I repeated the question at lunch and dinner, and again the following day, only to receive the same curt refusal each time. Mr. Linton retreated to the library, showing no curiosity about his wife's activities. He had a 1-hour conversation with Isabella, attempting to stir in her a proper sense of horror at Heathcliff's advances. Yet, her evasive responses left him frustrated, and he had to end the discussion without satisfaction. He did, however, issue a stern warning. If she was foolish enough to entertain that worthless suitor, it would sever all familial ties between them.